This is Game Night with Josh Hennig.
It's good!
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
And he scored!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort studio, here's Josh Hennig.
Phillies have won 4 straight games. Is it a trend or is it a temporary aberration? Josh Hennig live in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get into the Phillies and their state, plus who might have been the best draft pick of all of 2025. Well, you will hear from someone who covers the NFL and the NFL draft coming up as well here on 97.3 ESPN. And in less than 25 minutes from now, you will hear from New Jersey's own AEW's own, AEW in Atlantic City this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall. And before we get to Saturday, we will hear from the virtuosa herself, Deonna Purrazzo. She will join us coming up in less than 25 minutes from now. My conversation with her tonight on 97.3 ESPN. And as always, you guys can join the conversation. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. You know, there's so much to get to with this Phillies team. And for a team to win 4 straight games, I think it's a big deal because this team was such a roller coaster ride for the month of April. And for them to finish the month on a 4-game winning streak really goes to show you that this team is trending in the right direction. Okay, I'll steal a Mike Gill term, trending, right? Trends. And I thought last night was a very big game because you got contributions from some guys who are honestly going to be part of your long-term success. One of them being Kyle Schwarber, his second home run for the second straight night. You know, you saw guys like Stott having some good games as they've come home for this homestand. You're seeing good pitching outings from Christopher Sanchez. It wasn't great last night, but he was good. And I think that, you know, I've heard starting pitchers talk about this, about how they say if I get 30 starts in a year, 20 of those 30 starts, I might not have my best stuff. And that's why it's important to be a pitcher, not just a thrower. So the team is definitely trending in the right direction. But the biggest news to come out of last night wasn't just the 4 wins. It wasn't just Kyle Schwarber finally starting to heat up. It was Ranger Suarez. Rob Thompson was asked about Ranger, who had his most recent bullpen session, and here's what the Phillies manager said after last night's game.
Do you have anything on us on Ranger, what his next step is, how he came out of the then?
Was really good. He's going to start Sunday. So it's going to be Luzardo, Nola, Ranger.
Fascinating information coming from the Phillies manager for a couple reasons. One, because in order to put Ranger back in the starting rotation, you're going to have to take Walker out of the rotation. Now, no one's crying over that at all. But it's the fact that the way he just said it, you heard him say, Luzardo Friday, Nola Saturday, Suarez Sunday. You're giving Zach Wheeler more than his normal days of rest. Now, is that because just how the schedule laid out? Is that because they really want Ranger to come back against Arizona on Sunday and not have his first game back on the road in Tampa on Tuesday? Is it because maybe Wheeler went to them and said, hey, I can maybe use an extra day or two between starts here? Instead of my normal days off, I get a couple extra days off here. It's a very interesting strategy by the Phillies, number one. I think that's part of the conversation here. Number two, if Walker pitches well tonight against the Nationals, and then you put him in the bullpen, how long until we start having the next stage of conversation about Andrew Painter? Dave Dombrowski has told the media that the Phillies view Ranger Suarez and Andrew Painter as starters and not as bullpen guys. So if you only view them as starters, not bullpen guys, you can't have 6 starters if you have a team that doesn't want to have a 6-man rotation. And with guys like Wheeler and Nola, your 2 veterans, who have told you, I don't really like the 6-man rotation. I want to stay on schedule. So the Phillies have a lot of difficult decisions to figure out. Who they're going to send down when Suarez comes up, and Marsh eventually, by the way. Now, Marsh is probably a little easier. You're probably going to send down Cal Stevenson, left-handed outfielder, left-handed outfielder. It's a pretty simple swap. But as Rob Thompson was asked by the media today, just a couple hours ago, it's going to be a difficult decision when Ranger comes up, right? Who are you removing from the big league roster? Rob Thompson, just a couple hours ago.
When Ranger comes back, in terms of who goes out with, Banks and Hernandez both pitched really well last night.
Yeah, those guys that pitched last night were heaven sent, man. I mean, we've been grinding on those other guys quite a bit. Those guys came up big, but those are always tough decisions. We'll figure it out.
Now, we know the decision might not literally be Hernandez or Banks. There's a couple scenarios the Phillies could go in terms of opening up a roster spot. I know that Banks and Hernandez for some people are maybe like obvious choices, but realistically, when you look at this bullpen, it's hard, guys, because I don't think there's a right answer to any of this. You could argue Banks has actually been a solid enough pitcher that he shouldn't go anywhere. Maybe the guy you should go is like a Joe Ross, right? You put Walker in the bullpen and you unload Ross. Maybe he goes instead of Hernandez. Either way, this is not going to be an easy decision with the Phillies because the Phillies are the only team in 2025 who has not made any major pitching roster changes. And that's with having the second worst bullpen in all of baseball. So if Rangers going to come up and pitch on Sunday, they're going to need to make the decision probably Saturday of who they send down or who they put through waivers, depending on who it is, depending on if they have a minor league options or not. And then your starting rotation moving forward is going to be Wheeler, Luzardo, Nola, Sanchez, and Ranger with Taijuan Walker in the bullpen. I don't know if Taijuan Walker's going to make the bullpen that much better, but listen, you got to treat the return of Ranger Suarez as one, a positive, but also two, a test run. Because for the Phillies, they got to find out which version of Ranger Suarez are they getting. Are they getting the Ranger Suarez who has been one of the best pitchers when he's healthy? Or are you going to get a guy who has been the on-again, off-again, back issues pitcher? Because remember, when Ranger Suarez is on, he is arguably in the top third, or top quarter, I should say, of pitchers in all of baseball. This is a guy who, if you go through his history with the Phillies, multiple times has had incredible runs. But for him, there's been some injury concerns, right? He hasn't been able to stay healthy. But when he is on, when he is healthy, when he is focused, the 28 to soon-be 29-year-old, he is still, sorry, he already is 29, but the 29-year-old is still one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. When in terms of his stuff, his moxie, the ice water in his blood. So the ice water in his veins, the guy is just such a moxie, talented pitcher that you got to find a way to get the best out of him. And I thought he handled the question earlier today about his future very, very well because he was asked by the media, we know you want to be a starter, but what the Phillies ask you to go with the bullpen? And I thought Ranger gave the perfect answer through the Phillies interpreter. Take a listen.
Obviously, it's going to depend on the context. That's a tough one, but I obviously want to be in the rotation all the time. I want to be starting pitching like a starter all the time. But if it's for the team's sake, if it's to win something, if it's to get the World Series, then I'm willing to do anything.
It's the right answer. You got to give the guy a ton of credit. I mean, Ranger is being the guy who's standing above board. He's the one who's going up there and taking the questions, giving the honest answers. I think it's very admirable of him. I think it's very smart of him to be honest. People say, look, I want to be a starter. But if it takes us to win a World Series for me to come out of the bullpen, I'll do it. So you got to applaud him for that. Again, whatever happens this weekend, it's the first of many roster moves over the next several months for the Philadelphia Phillies. Again, tonight, it's, as of right now, the final start for Taijuan Walker until further notice for the Philadelphia Phillies. Steven Metner chimes in at 609-403-0973. Steve says, Tanner Banks did look good last night. I would say Cal Stevens and Cesar Hernandez are the guys that are out when Ranger and Brandon Marsh come up. Yeah, I'm getting the sense that you're right, Steve. You know, nothing against Cal Stevenson, but again, left-handed hitter. You got 2 million of those, it seems like. And then you mentioned Hernandez. You know, Hernandez was mostly added because he was a cast-off from the Royals, and I think they were hoping for maybe a little bit more from him than they've gotten. And I would look at Hernandez as a guy who he did the job. He filled the void. But between him and Joe Ross, I just don't see their value long-term for this team, especially if you're sending Taijuan Walker to the bullpen. I think that is, you know, a big part of this conversation, right, is that, you know, Walker is a guy they're going to send to the bullpen, and I love the text from Jeff in Ocean City. He says, Taijuan Walker can get shelled tonight and make it easier for everybody. Listen, nothing against Taijuan. He seems like a great teammate, right? He seems like a great guy who, you know, just he cares about his teammates. He cares about baseball. He's just not that good. He's not worth the money is spent on him. You know, people forget the genesis of Taijuan Walker was after 2022, the Phillies did not want to give Kyle Gibson the money he was asking for. And they wanted to get an innings eater who was younger and who they felt would be more worth that kind of money. And that's why they looked at Taijuan Walker and they said, well, this guy is almost 10 years younger than Kyle Gibson. This is a guy who, you know, is he the best pitcher in baseball? No, but at least he is somebody who has shown you during his time with the Mets that he could be a solid pitcher. He was a one-time All-Star. So you brought him in, you thought he could potentially at least do for you what he did for the Mets. And when he got started before the injuries came around, he was actually solid. He was actually doing a pretty good job. But as time went on, you realize that between the injuries, the decreased velocity, the losing of confidence a little bit, that, you know, he has never really earned the contract that he signed. And so now you're in this predicament when it comes to the Phillies. And when it comes to Taijuan Walker, it's not a simple answer. It's not a, if you do this, then this happens kind of scenario. But, you know, and I get where Jeff from Ocean City is coming from. Obviously, we are saying this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, right? It's the idea that Walker is basically a placeholder at this point. He's been holding down the fort until somebody else comes along, right? So that's at least how I look at it. I don't treat Taijuan Walker as this, you know, oh, look at this guy they totally screwed up on, or I don't look at this guy as, man, I got to find a way to keep him on the roster. But I think because of how much he's getting paid, you're stuck with him. So now you got to make the best of the situation. And for the Phillies, you know, Dave Dombrowski, he has not been perfect. He has not been throwing, you know, strikes with all of these free agent moves, to use a baseball analogy. You know, he's not constantly getting out there and throwing strike after strike. You know, he's got some good ones, he's got some bad ones. And, you know, Taijuan Walker probably a move that if you had to go back in time, you might have done a little differently. Just like they might have considered doing the Trey Turner situation a little bit differently, or they might have brought back Estevez or Hoffman instead of letting them both walk. It's the idea that for the Phillies, you've won 4 straight. You want to keep it going, right? You want to finish this homestand strong. You want to get to the Diamondback series on a 5-game winning streak. So now, when you go on the road next, you keep on winning, you keep on playing well. The question is what we have seen going to carry them through? Because if you look at their schedule moving forward, it doesn't get any easier. Again, Arizona this weekend for 3. Next weekend, road trip at Tampa, at Cleveland. You come back home against a St. Louis team, which is a very good offense. And they don't have the pitching matchups announced yet, but there is a good chance, it looks like, that you will see either Skeens or Keller when Pittsburgh comes to Philadelphia in a couple weeks. So, again, you want to gain the momentum. You want to keep winning because those winning vibes can be something that carries you. I do think that the 4-game winning streak does matter. It shows the guys are coming around. It's just a matter of now, as we enter May, as we keep building up more data points, more information on these guys, now the attention, for me at least, turns from the players on the field to the general manager, Preston Mattingly, and the president of baseball operations, Dave Dombrowski, and where I say, all right, guys, you know a team you know the kind of team you have. You've seen it play out. 17-13. Good baseball team. But is it a championship-winning baseball team? We'll check back at the text board a little bit later this hour, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. A little bit later in the show, Eagles draft pick. Could this guy be the best pick of the Philadelphia Eagles draft? We will get to that in about 25 minutes from now. But coming up next, the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo and AEW will be in Atlantic City at Boardwalk Hall this Saturday. You'll hear my conversation with Deonna coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
This Saturday morning, tune into the Locker Room. Josh Hennig and Nick Earnshaw will be broadcasting live from the Cooper River Park in Camden County at the Down and Derby Wine Festival. Saturday is the 151st Running for the Roses. Jeffrey Nash from FastlaneHandicapper.com will preview the Derby. Plus, you'll hear from Hall of Fame jockey Tony Black on his experiences riding in the big race. Mr. Negadelphia PJ Korda checks in, plus Director of Camden County Freeholders Lou Capelli. It's the Locker Room with Billy Schweim, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.
Protect your home and auto with a bundle from Progressive so you can stop worrying about them and invent new things to worry about, like snakes in your bedroom. Sure, that sounds incredibly irrational, but now that we've mentioned it, you are a little worried. The odds of one snake, let alone snakes plural, are so slim. But you might want to check. Oh, you're not near your bedroom. Guess you'll just have to sit there and worry about it. So let Progressive protect your home and auto, because you've got enough to worry about. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
If you need to hire, it seems like the whole process can be exhausting. You search resumes, wait for the right candidates to apply, set up initial interviews. It's a lot of time and work. Well, what if you could meet with qualified candidates for your job the very next day? Now you can with Zip Intro from ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Zip Intro is super easy to use. You simply pick a time, and it does all the work of finding and scheduling qualified candidates for you. Then you can choose who you want to talk to and meet with great people on back-to-back video calls as soon as the next day. Best of all, you save time and energy.
Try Zip Intro for free right now at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Zip Intro. Post jobs today, talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Once again, go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio to try it for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
O'Reilly. Protect your vehicle's engine with Syntec and O'Reilly Auto Parts. Syntec Premium Full Synthetic Motor Oil is formulated for today's engines. Right now, get 5 quarts of Syntec Full Synthetic and a MicroGuard Select Oil Filter for just $32.99. In-store only, limit supplies. See store for details. Choose Syntec exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. The Phillies with a 7-2 victory over the Washington Nationals on Wednesday. They take the first 2 games of the series. Kyle Schwarber with a 3-run home run in the first inning. Max Kepler and JT Realmuto also went deep. Taijuan Walker will get the start today for the Phillies against Brad Lord in the final game of the series. NFL, the Eagles picking up the 5th-year contract on defensive tackle Jordan Davis, who has started every game over the last 2 years. He was the Eagles' first-round draft pick in 2022. This keeps him under contract with the Eagles through the 2026 season and is worth around $13 million. The NHL holding its draft lottery next week. Philadelphia Flyers have the 4th best chance of landing the number 1 pick with an 8.5% chance of winning the draft lottery. Progressive Insurance, bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
Individual results may vary. Prescription required. Actual price depends on product and plan purchased. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information.
You've noticed your hair is thinning out. Or maybe you've noticed your game in the bedroom is getting a bit cold. Let's make this real simple. These are normal things that happen to lots of guys at some point. And through Hims, getting help couldn't be more, as we said, simple. The process is 100% online, so you just have to answer a few simple questions, and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. For your hair, that means access to a range of doctor-trusted treatments designed to help you regrow hair in as few as 3 to 6 months. And for your more intimate moments, that means access to treatments made to give you a boost in the bedroom, like Viagra, Cialis, and their generic counterparts, which can cost up to 95% less through Hims. If prescribed, treatment is shipped right to your door. A few clicks, and you're dealing with these things before they become a thing. So simple. Find your hair loss and ED solutions today at Hims.com. That's Hims.com. HIMS.com.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zero. Yes, we still need rain, but why must it constantly dampen our weekend? Becoming mostly cloudy tonight with a chance of a shower, low as 60. A pop-up shower or thunderstorm possible tomorrow. It's going to be warm and breezy with a mix of clouds and sun, high of 83. Partly sunny Saturday, high 79. Chance of an afternoon or evening thunderstorm. Better chance of rain looks to be Sunday. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
Relay for Life of Atlantic County is a chance to celebrate cancer survivors and caregivers, remembered loved ones, and fight back against every cancer as we join together for every life. Funds raised support the American Cancer Society mission of ending cancer as we know it for everyone. That means funding cancer research breakthroughs that can help save lives and providing free patient and caregiver support. Visit relayforlife.org/Atlantic County NJ and join us on May 31st at 1 p.m. at the Police Activities League in Egg Harbor Township.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. AEW, that's right, it's back in Atlantic City this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall. And, of course, joining us is New Jersey's own, the virtuosa herself, Deonna Purrazzo, here on 97.3 ESPN. Deonna, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. Now, for those who've been following your social media, they know you've been doing a lot of traveling, so it seems like you and Steve have been enjoying yourselves out in nature, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. We just went to Sequoia National Park yesterday, and I can't even believe that that place is real. Like, it was... I kept saying it smells like we're in Avatar, like the ride in Disney. It like, however they've created that scent, that's what the park smelled like. It was incredible, so crazy.
So I have a history question for you because
Okay.
you always do this to Steve, where you kind of like, for those who follow you on social media, you kind of half ambush him, but he kind of knows what's coming at this point, right? So
Yeah.
you're gonna be in Atlantic City this Saturday.
Yeah.
What wrestling superstar won their first international championship in Atlantic City?
Oh my gosh. Their first championship in Atlantic City. Okay, my brain went to like Bruno Sammartino. I feel like that is so incorrect, but I don't know who else it could be. That was the only name that came into my brain.
So you're in kind of like the right range time frame. So
Okay.
WWF World Championship, Macho Man Randy Savage,
Okay.
WrestleMania. It was in Atlantic City when him and Hulk Hogan united and helped Randy win his first championship.
Wow. Okay. Wrestling fans don't come for me. My degree is in like American world history, not wrestling history. But that's cool because I feel like New Jerseyans would take Macho Man on like and claim him as one of our own. So I like that.
And see, now that you know that, you can steal that to use at some point as well now, see?
100%. That's going to be coming up soon for the Teaching My Husband History series.
See, I'm a history major too, so I'm full of useless information. So that's why I love this whole Teaching History to Steve series.
Well, thank you. We're gonna need to connect, and you're gonna have to give me some harder questions because I swear he's evolving. He's studying for this thing, because he is getting the answers right and flipping the script and asking me questions that I'm not prepared to answer. So we need to like meld our minds and stump him.
Yeah, I got tons of useless information for you, which will be useful for this specific situation. So,
Great.
but back to the wrestling. So you've been now with AEW for over a year. For those who don't know the whole story, you made your debut with AEW in New Jersey at the beginning of 2024. So now, a year plus into it, tell the audience like what has been maybe like the highlight for you. What has been like a moment or a storyline or a situation that kind of made you say like, "Wow, I'm so glad to be here."
Yeah, I feel like when I was about to become a free agent and I spoke to some people at AEW and was just like trying to plan my next steps, I had just seen that the first Dynamite of 2024 was going to be in New Jersey. And I was going to be a free agent at that point. And so I feel like that, like I've had some great matches and great feuds. I loved what I did with Thunder Rosa last summer. That culminated in like the first ever women's televised Texas Bull Rope match. But I feel like nothing could top debuting in New Jersey with my family in the front row, my husband there, the crowd chanting Deonna. Like, taking a moment after that, I had realized I've never cut a promo or talked in front of an audience of that size. I've never, like only just a few times had I wrestled in front of a crowd that size at this point. So it was all just so special for so many reasons. And that's the only thing I wanted. I was like, I don't care what happens after that. If I'm going to come to AEW, that's the debut. That would be perfect for me. And so I was just really, really grateful that we got to make that happen.
You talked about the fan response, the fans chanting your name. You know, for those who never experienced that, can you give folks like an idea of like what that moment, like in the moment was like?
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's like someone, like you hear a conversation or an interview about like after the fact, but kind of take us in the moment for being someone. I mean, your job literally is entertainment. Your job literally is to be the best version of yourself night in and night out for the people in the crowd, and to hear them chanting your name like that is like what in that moment?
Crazy. I think for me in that moment too, the crowd, I don't know that they necessarily expected it to be me. There was, rumors floating around about other free agents and other women who, would eventually make it into the company, Mercedes Moné. But I don't know that anyone necessarily expected it wholeheartedly to be me. So there was this anxious feeling before, and also like just on a personal note, like not a lot of things in life make me cry and make me very emotional, but wrestling always does. And I think it's this like innate thing that like I only ever wanted to be a wrestler, and now I'm getting to do it. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for that. And so, like, literally I was in tears behind the curtain, like, waiting for my music to go out, hysterical crying. Madison Rain, who's my best friend, was looking at me like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. And so then to walk out and then hear that response, and people were genuinely so excited, so surprised it was me. And then, yeah, they're chanting my name, like, 7,000 people are chanting my name, and my dad is in the front row, and he gets to experience that with me. It was just crazy surreal, but was like it was everything I had hoped it would be. And a lot of times we don't get that. It doesn't amount to what we want it to be in our brain, right? And so for it to, I don't think could ever be duplicated in my career.
That's awesome. We're talking with New Jersey's own Deonna Purrazzo, of course, the virtuosa, joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, do I have to pay you every time I say that now? Because I saw you got that trademarked.
Yes, you do. It's officially trademarked. It's mine.
Congratulations on that, by the way. We can maybe me giving you more history ideas like my payment for saying the virtuosa. How about that?
I think that's fair. I'll take that. Yeah.
All right. See, barter system. We got this all figured out here. So, but in Atlantic City this Saturday, AEW Boardwalk Hall, and to me it's wild that AEW we're getting them into Atlantic City because of the history of pro wrestling that has been in Atlantic City. But part of the history is also yours as well, because your journey has been absolutely incredible. And I was watching a couple months ago your interview with Chris Van Vliet, and you talked about how you are so much of a different woman today than you were 14 years ago, 15 years ago when you first got into this. Yeah. And and no offense to Chris, he's great at what he does, but my follow-up question when you said that he didn't ask you, so I'm going to ask you here, which is I want to know, what is for you the biggest difference between that woman 15 years ago and the woman now? Because obviously there are certain things, right? Maturity, life experience, perspective. But what is something, aside from the obvious, that you say, oh my gosh, like now that I'm here now, that is such a huge difference for me, Deonna?
I think the biggest difference, and this isn't always the most popular answer, is that I have other interests now. I have other hobbies now. And like I said earlier, like at 9 years old, I told my parents I'm going to be a professional wrestler. And I worked my entire life to get that moment, to have my first match, to make an entrance to a ring one day. And nothing else interests me. My friends would be like, oh, we're going to do this. And I'm like, hey, Monday Night Raw is on Mondays, can't do that. Friday Night SmackDown is on Friday, can't go to the party. So I just tailored my whole life to becoming a professional wrestler. And I think it was about 2020, the pandemic happened. I'd just been released of my contract at NXT, and I just had this moment of like, if this is all that I worked for and I didn't love it as much as I thought I did. And at that point, the wrestling landscape had changed as well. AEW was just forming, and we were just seeing it in its first year. And I just wasn't sure where I fit into the entire wrestling world anymore, and if I even wanted to fit into it. And so now, I have a bachelor's degree in history. I'm working on my master's degree in political science. I'm married, you know what I mean? Like, I have 3 dogs. I have a amazing life outside of wrestling that keeps me balanced. And so not 100% of every effort that I give to everything that I do is about professional wrestling. It's an even 50-50 balance where I can turn it off and only give 100% when I'm at work, or when I'm watching Dynamite, or when I'm in the ring training for an upcoming match or something like that. I think that balance is what's made me a way better woman, a way better partner, a way better wrestler, is just being able to say, like, this is wrestling and this is my other interests, because I never had that before.
That's actually a perfect answer, because I literally just interviewed Jim Murphy, the guy who wrote the book Inner Excellence, this week. And one of the things the book talks about is being able to see beyond just your goals, just see beyond just what you want to be. We're talking with the virtuosa herself, Deonna Purrazzo, AEW this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. When you just mentioned something was interesting, which is talking about how, like, hey, I used to all this time, right, for just to watch wrestling, and I used to all the time to be a wrestler, right? And I think that what's interesting in that conversation is you're also describing the evolution of women's wrestling, because the fact that, women's wrestling was kind of like this weird niche, years ago. And now it's to the point where I was making the argument here on 97.3 ESPN that I thought the best match at WrestleMania was the three-way match between Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky, where it was like, you could argue that was one of the best three-ways I've ever seen in terms of execution and athleticism, and like the crowd knew it as well. Like you could hear the crowd 100% engaged, and you talking about how, you know, you hear people chanting your name as you're walking out for the first time at AEW, and it's like, to me, that is a part of this whole thing, is that you are in the midst of this evolution, not just of the sport and in the landscape, but also in women's wrestling as well.
Oh yeah, and you know, I think that that's also happening at AEW right now. And you know, I think that there was a very, very strong case for at Revolution for Toni Storm and Mariah May to be the main event of the pay-per-view. And unfortunately they weren't, but I think that our women's division is grown so much in the last year and a half, 2 years. And we're seeing more women weekly on our television shows, but also then too, yes, it's like eventually women are going to warrant that spot and you're not going to be able to deny it. And so I think that it's incredible to be in a division that is growing like that and to see that happening for the women around me. I was so fortunate to be able to be a part of that evolution, specifically women main eventing a pay-per-view when I was at TNA and got to be a part of the first ever Knockouts World Championship pay-per-view match. And so to know that that's coming up and to feel that excitement and that maturity in a extremely new, comparatively, women's division in AEW, it's only, you know, just about 6 years old, is such an exciting time for me. And I know our entire division feels that too.
All right, a couple more before I let you go. I want to know for you, who has been the person at AEW that afterward you were like, oh bleep, I can't believe I just got to like do whatever with that person, like hang out with them, talk to them, bounce ideas off of them. Like, who was someone that you were like you picked up the phone to Steve and you were like, Steve, what the bleep? Like, I gotta tell you this.
For me, that person's Dean Malenko. You know, if you know me as a wrestler, I'm a technician. My finisher is, you know, a double Fujiwara armbar, and everything I do goes back to that Fujiwara armbar. And so to be able to meet Dean for the first time, it took me months to like work up the nerve to even introduce myself and say hello. And so now it's so funny you say that. Over the weekend, I was doing a convention, and Dean was across the hall from me, and he was like, Deonna! And I went over and I said hello, and he gave me a hug, and I said hello to his wife, and I texted Steve, and I was like, Dean and I are friends, and this is crazy! So for me, yeah, it's Dean Malenko, because his matches were my favorite. To watch him and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho and the magic that they made, you know, all over the globe are some of my favorite matches to go back and watch and study and be inspired again by. So to know that I have him that I can just like BS with, but then also, you know, bounce wrestling questions off of is incredible. It's crazy.
By the way, Chris Jericho also in AEW, which will be in Atlantic City this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall. And before I let you go, and I appreciate your time today, this Saturday in Atlantic City, what is the Virtuoso looking forward to the most when she is at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City?
You know what? At first, I was going to make it wrestling related, but you know what I'm most excited about? Going home and eating like New Jersey food.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so excited to see what happens on Collision. I'm so excited for more to be announced. Looking forward to the end of the week. But as a New Jerseyan who lives in Orlando, Florida, we don't have good pizza. We don't have good bread. We don't have good bagels. We don't have good like cold cuts and things like that. So my first stop is going to be like maybe a good slice of pizza. Yeah, I need to go home. I need to eat the food and just like get my fix, and then I could go back to Orlando, which really is my home, and be okay for a few months.
And again, nothing wrong with Orlando. I like Florida personally, but you know, I'm just saying, you know, the pizza and the bread is better in New Jersey. That's all I'm saying.
100%, hands down. Like I would die on that fact.
Yeah, this is why we're getting along here. We agree on history, we agree on food, and of course, she is the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo. This Saturday, AEW Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. Get your tickets now. You don't want to miss out on such a great show that AEW puts on. Deonna, I appreciate you jumping on the conversation. We look forward to seeing you Saturday night in Atlantic City.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks to Deonna for joining me. I had to record with her. She actually interrupted her vacation with her husband, Steve, to jump on to do a recorded interview so we could bring that to you guys here on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, her husband, also from New Jersey, Steve Macklin. He is the TNA Wrestling International Champion. So they're a bit of a power couple as well, Deonna and Steve. And, of course, if you want to win tickets to see Deonna and All Elite Wrestling at Boardwalk Hall this Saturday, tune into the Sports Bash with Mike Gill tomorrow, where we'll be giving away a pair of tickets. The show will be in the Adrian Phillips Theater inside Jim Whalen Boardwalk Hall this Saturday. And, of course, all of it will be broadcast live on TBS and on Max. For more information, there will be an article tonight by yours truly on 973ESPN.com and the 973 ESPN mobile app. All right, back to text board. Coming up next, Steve from Ventnor, your texts and more at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And coming up on the other side, this player might have been the best draft pick for the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2025 NFL Draft. What one football analyst says. We'll bring it to you next on 97.3 ESPN.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. Let's get you started with Bill Pay. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City, a community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Progressive knows if you have to choose between everyday life and your boat, boat wins.
What are you going to do? Take the boat out for a spin or go mail something?
Boat wins!
Are we cleaning the patio or taking the boat out fishing?
Boat wins!
Are we skipping that eye exam to go sailing?
Boat wins!
Rescheduling eye exams can be a nightmare.
All right, fine. Eye exam, then boat.
Yeah!
With Progressive, you can bundle your boat with your home or auto and save with a discount and spend more time enjoying those savings on your boat. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states and situations.
Thy ticket, Lady Jennifer of Coolidge.
Well, many thanks, good sir. Here'th my Discover card.
They accept Discover at Renaissance fairs?
Yeah, they do here. Discover is accepted at the places I love to shop. Getteth with the times.
With the times? You're playing the lute.
Yeah, and it sounds pretty good, right?
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
O'Reilly!
Protect your vehicle's engine with Syntec and O'Reilly Auto Parts. Syntec Premium Full Synthetic Motor Oil is formulated for today's engines. Right now, get 5 quarts of Syntec Full Synthetic and a MicroGuard Select Oil Filter for just $32.99. In-store only, limit supplies. See store for details. Choose Syntec exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? Well, they're not hard to find when you go to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. people who are actively looking for jobs like yours. So it's easy to find the right person fast. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it dry no more. Skin so moisturized with body wash.
Look at you now, no more dry skin. Your skin gets the moisture it craves with
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
If a carpet refresh is on your to-do list, now's the time to check it off, because right now you can take advantage of our Buy More, Save More savings. The more you buy, the more you save, up to 15% on select special order carpet purchases. Plus, the Home Depot Home Services can handle the installation for you. All that's left is to enjoy that stunning new carpet and step into softness. The Home Depot, how doers get more done. Offer valid April 17th through May 4th. Receive up to 15% off special select order carpet purchases. Minimum purchase required. Exclusions apply. For licenses, see homedepot.com/license numbers.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
We'll check back on the text board at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Yes, we are live as always on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig here in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. The more we go around and we listen to people in the aftermath of the draft, and you got to filter through all the Shedeur Sanders just babble that's out there, just complete. And I mean, half the conversation about Shedeur Sanders is a complete waste of time and energy. But when you get back to the Eagles, right? You know, the team that won Super Bowl 59. I was listening to NFL Films analyst Greg Cosell. And Greg Cosell, you know, he's been covering the NFL for decades, watching film, breaks it down every year for the draft. And he says this player is his favorite player the Eagles drafted. And I ask you guys, this is not the first person I have heard speak this highly of this player. Andrew DiCecco did it earlier today on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. I heard Rick Saratella mention it in a bit earlier this week with Mike Gill on the Sports Bash. I've heard many other draft analysts. We've played the audio from Todd McShay earlier in the week, right? Guys like Field Yates and others. So who is the guy who might be the best pick of the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2025 NFL draft? Greg Cosell, what say you?
I love Makuba. Makuba was one of my favorites. I mean, I liked Eminwari at number 1. I could make an argument that I like Makuba more than Starks. Makuba's twitchy. He's sudden. He's a really good athlete. He's up to 194 because he was 186 at the combine. Because at 186, that's a little small. But this guy is aggressive. He's a better athlete than Watts. I'm sure. I know they liked Watts too, but Makuba's a better athlete.
He loves Makuba. And the more that I listen to the people who study the tape, people who study the film, people who watched Makuba very closely, it's sounding more and more like for Philadelphia, this guy was about, in some ways, yes, you want to pick the best player available, but he also happened to meet a specific need. That's something that Howie Roseman addressed yesterday on the Rich Eisen show.
He just plays like his hair is on fire. You know, everything about him is fast and physical, and he's got ball skills too. So for us, great character. It was just a really good fit for what we were looking for in the back end. Obviously, we've lost some players here in Philadelphia since the Super Bowl, and we weren't trying to draft for need, but when need hits the value of the player, it's a beautiful thing.
And, you know, Howie has always emphasized best player available. He's always emphasized not drafting for need. And it's part of the reason why Philadelphia has gotten to 2 Super Bowl appearances in the last 5 years and won 2 championships in the last 8. But as Greg Cosell goes on to explain further detail from the Inside the Birds podcast, his conversation with Adam Capital on ITB TV in the Ask Cosell segment. He talks about why Makuba is such a good fit for Philadelphia. Take a listen to his explanation, because I think that this explanation tells you a lot about a little more about why Philadelphia drafted Makuba, but also it gives you a little insight into, we discussed earlier this week about the influence of Vic Fangio, right? That, Sal Paolantonio said earlier this week that some of these picks are Vic Fangio picks, right? That Vic Fangio is the one feeding to Howie Roseman, this is who I need. This is who I want on my defense. Here is Greg Cosell explaining that valuable point in further detail.
Makuba just has a better feel for how they want to play in their quarters looks. He's really aggressive and competitive as a run defender, because as a run defender, what they expect their safeties to do, what they call is flow, stack, track. That's the way they want their safeties to play. It's safety's responsibility in run defense out of quarters, and he comes down and he hits you. He's played a lot of football. He sees things really well. He's got good hands. In some ways, he's kind of like Gardner Johnson.
Two huge important parts of what Greg Cosell said. Number one, at the end, you heard him say he's similar to C.J. Gardner Johnson. That was something that I was saying over the weekend and on Monday here on 97.3 ESPN. I was explaining to you guys that Makuba can do for Phillies defense what C.J. G.J. did, but he has one major difference. That major difference is discipline. Makuba's last 26 starts in college football, he had 0 penalties called against him. He committed 0 on-the-field mistakes in terms of mental or physical mistakes. That is a high level of discipline that Philadelphia has not had at the safety position since Malcolm Jenkins was here. For all of C.J. Gardner Johnson's talent, for all of C.J. G.J.'s ability, instincts, intuition, aggressiveness, and the whole gambit of what he brings to the table, discipline was like his Achilles heel. Remember, when he got kicked out of that Washington game, that is when the Commanders went on that scoring run, right? They outscored Philadelphia, 16-0 for the final stretch of the game? From that point on, Washington's could not be stopped by Philly's defense. And CJ admitted after the game, I shouldn't have done that. That was my bad. That was my mistake. I put my teammates in a bad position. And now, you move on from CJ, in part because you didn't want to pay him what he was going to be owed or deserved moving forward. And two, you wanted to get more offensive line depth. A former first round pick, Kenyon Green, what you got in the trade from the Texans. And so now you were presented with a player who fits what Vic Fangio wants to do perfectly. And as Howie Roseman also explains on the Rich Eisen show, Makuba's versatility was a key reason for why he was so high on their draft board.
He was all ACC for his 3 years at Clemson. Was actually the ACC Defensive Player of the Year as a freshman Player of the Year. He had played a lot of nickel at Clemson, so he had this coverage ability, which we're always looking for in our back-end players, to be able to come down, cover the slot, to have that versatility, to not only be able to play in the middle of the field, but to come down and cover slot receivers. Gives Vic a lot of flexibility.
There's a key point in what Howie says there. He talks about Makuba's time at Clemson, not his time at Texas. Very important to keep in remembrance. One, Makuba in many ways rose up draft boards because of his final year playing at Texas, of how well he played at a super high level. But Howie said, well, we went back to Clemson and we saw X, Y, and Z from him as well. That shows you how detail-oriented the Eagles are in their draft evaluation process. Number two, who played at Clemson for a time with Makuba? Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the Eagles' current linebacker on the team. And the Eagles have admitted, hey, part of the reason why we were so zoned in on Ty Robinson is because we saw him practicing against Cam Jurgens at Nebraska, you don't think that they saw Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and some of that tape? They were like, who's that safety over there? Who's that guy? Give me more information on that guy. Because that's part of scouting. It's not just seeing the guy that you're evaluating, it's seeing the other guys around. You know, one of the reasons why certain players get drafted is because, or even get recruited, right? You know, you can go as a recruit for a college to one high school and be looking at one player and walk away and say, hey, I know I went to look at Joe Smith, but Mike Williams, or whatever the guy's name, he stood out to me even more. And that's what happens so many times. And so it just goes to give you a better understanding of why the Eagles drafted Makuba and why he may go down as the best player the Eagles evaluated and picked in the 2025 NFL draft, because he is such a perfect fit for what they want to do defensively. And it makes you worry a little bit less about losing some of the starters from last year's team when you're filling the void with guys like Drew Makuba. Thanks to everybody listening on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night, everybody. I'll catch you tomorrow.
This Saturday morning, tune into the locker room. Josh Hennig and Nick Earnshaw will be broadcasting live from the Cooper River Park in Camden County at the Down and Derby Wine Festival. Saturday is the 151st running for the Roses. Jeffrey Nash from FastlaneHandicapper.com will preview the Derby. Plus, you'll hear from Hall of Fame jockey Tony Black on his experiences riding in the big race. Mr. Negadelphia PJ Corda checks in, plus Director of Camden County Freeholders Lou Capelli. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.